A new boat, the Grand Soleil 50, and totally new instrumentation. For the first time in the world, a test of the new B&G Zeus system. We'll test the system out on the water, but tell us, what are the components integrated in the system? On this boat there's the Simrad RS82 VHF, the B&G Autopilot, a 5 Hz GPS antenna, two 8-inch Zeus repeaters in the cockpit, the 12-inch monitor in the charge room, the four 2020 B&G displays at the mast, the 24-mile broadband radar and the digital echo sounder. Let's go and try them out. Okay, fine.
At this
moment we're sailing out on the water and cruising happily along. B&G has for the first time created a product exclusively for the sailing sector, both for cruising and, as we'll see later, for racing. Let's start with the cartography. What is there that's different compared with normal digital charts? B&G cartography is the first to combine the normal functions of multifunctional cartography with sailing information, which we can find, traced and reproduced, superimposed on the chart. So the owner or the helmsman can understand what's happening and what the boat has to do to obtain a certain performance. Then there's the question of the radar. You just go to the menu functions, cartography, superimposition, and we have the radar scan over the cartography that allows us to see the coast. Very simply, if we just want the radar with the quick command radar, we can split the screen into several images showing different information. In addition, we can also decide if we want information on the boat's heading, on the compass course, or on the course over ground. All this using the radar, which, we must remember, consumes a ridiculously small amount of electricity. It's also the only radar in the world without radioactive emissions and is certified by a Norwegian company because it's completely life-safe. Let's go into more detail. Now, we're used to having an echo sounder on all sailing boats. It gives us the depth in meters. This instrument gives us the same information, but we can also use a sensor that tells us the composition of the bottom. Can you show us? You just need to add an HD box called BSM1 to the system, and we can get not just numerical data about depth, but also the graphics of the bottom. This device is also able to use structure scan, very high definition echo sounding, because it works at 800 kHz. So obviously, with all the data coming from the boat's instrumentation, we can customize the way these data are displayed graphically on the monitor. Yes, exactly. The individual pages can be divided into sub-pages which can be customized by the owner, or you can use the ones predefined in the factory. And we can see up to 4 sets of data at the same time. Here, for example, we can see just the chart, or the chart plus the echo, or the chart and the radar, or all 3 key sets of data: chart, echo and radar. Now let's look at the things that are really interesting and directly linked to sailing. If we want to look at a racing situation, we also have this information. I think this is one of the pluses of this product, what I like most. Can you explain what data we have on the cartography? On the cartography, we can have information on the ley lines, with times to ley line and distance to ley line, in an upwind-downwind race or a long race. We can create a course, and point by point, the cartography tells us the best course to sail. When to tack to make the mark, with simple graphics, creating points like normal waypoints. And you don't have to read hundreds of pages of a manual. So as we're seeing now, we have a fixed windward waypoint, mark, and we can see the ley lines clearly defined, and we also have all the information you mentioned. Right, here it shows the apparent wind data. In this case, we've chosen this display, times and distances to the two ley lines, to starboard and to port. The unbroken lines are the ideal courses for making the mark. The dotted lines, and these here closer to the ley line, are more risky courses but get us more easily to the mark. The dotted lines further away are the courses that make us surer of reaching the mark, but with slightly greater times and distances. You can also have a graphic display of the data we have on the wind, for example. Can you show us? Right. In this case, we have a display that shows both the cartography and a graphic section that can show data on the wind and shifts, both in terms of compass direction and shifts in intensity. This is very important for knowing at a glance where the wind is coming from, so the helmsman can trim his sails and correct his course. So we have a semi-deckman. I don't know what you'd call it. We also have very detailed information. Can we have a look at the whole setup? Yes. This cartography, our Zeus, combines entry-level racing information and settings. On the calibration page, we can find a simple correction of the masthead offset and wind strength, or even go into the boat's polar diagrams and modify these and the various targets, according to the information I get from my race crew and my navigator.
Delle informazioni che ricevo dal mio equipaggio di regata e quindi anche dal mio navigatore. È uno strumento utile per iniziare.
It's a useful instrument for gaining experience with B&G, starting from cruising right up to top level. I see that all data are displayed graphically so they can be read at a glance. That's right. On the information page, we find the wind plot and the various time plotting data.
Time plotting, boat
speed, real or apparent wind data, both direction and intensity, can be displayed graphically in two ways, linearly or with an XY diagram. All this information is useful for the helmsman. He can see immediately what's happening and take the best decision, whether he's cruising or racing. This Grand Soleil 50 seems well suited to this kind of instrumentation, this innovation from B&G. It's the ideal compromise for the Grand Soleil owner who's looking for racing performance but also ease of use in cruising. So it's the optimum, and the data are extremely accurate. From an operating point of view, fitting and installation, what were your sensations? It was all quite easy, even calibrating the instruments and setting up the polar diagrams with a simple pen key. The data are prepared on a computer and transferred to the instrument. There was nothing difficult or complex. Let's say it's the intermediate step between the professional deckman, which obviously requires a professional on board, and a decidedly more basic instrument. Okay, let's see it in a race. Sure.
Abbiamo provato il nuovo sistema Zeus di B&G.
We tried out the new B&G Zeus system, a totally integrated system. It makes available to me all the data from my boat's instrumentation. It's very interesting with its racing functions and also for cruising. Total integration, total safety.